All right. Hello again. We're talking about Fanny and Alexander by Ingmar Bergman. Recent events made me want to revisit this film. I took the opportunity to watch the 5-hour, the television version, the one that Bergman made for Swedish television. Something of an extended cut from the usual movie that I've never seen it. This is available on YouTube if you want to watch it for yourself, or maybe somebody uploaded it. Otherwise, the original film, the theatrical version, is available on HBO Max, the streaming service. So, in the end, I would probably recommend, if you've never seen it, I'd recommend either, but if you've never seen it, I would say probably the theatrical version I liked a little better. It's just a tighter film. I expected to like the 5-hour version more because I've always wondered what had gone on, and I figured it would have been like what had gone on with Emily and the bishop, why she was so zealous and fanatical and passionate with the bishop, and then very, very quickly that turned the other way. She hates him. So I figured it would flesh that out more. It actually doesn't really at all. So it was different than I expected. I've definitely really enjoyed it. It's Bergman, so none of it's really boring. None of it you're just wondering why they would make why they would make, they would waste your time with this stuff. None of it's really a waste of time. But I did figure the theatrical version is a little better. As for the movie, the longer version, it kind of reminded me maybe like Apocalypse Now Redux or something, where it's kind of fun to see these extra scenes and things, but the overall narrative of the film is kind of bogged down, at least from what you're used to. It's better than that. Apocalypse Now Redux is kind of it's kind of a bad movie compared to the original Apocalypse Now, or really any other cut you might have seen of the film. It's just too long. But this, if you watch this, you're doing fine. It's great. I mean, it is awesome. I didn't know if it would just totally blow me away, but in the end, I was like, well, actually, it's more extra stuff, but the original version is fine. Anyhow, the film is basically about how the Fanny and Alexander are two children. They're children of the Akdals. The Akdals are Swedish actors. They have a theater. And the father dies, and then the mother marries this churchman who is like a pietist Lutheran, a very strict. He's a bishop, and he becomes their stepfather, and so they go from one home where it's very much enchanted and joyful and everything is magical and splendid and happy, and then they go to this other world which is rigid and strict and just it turns out awful, just a horrible place. Okay, where they're from originally, it's not a perfect place. There's a lot of problems to it, and it's interesting. They're actors. The film This film reminds me a lot of what always comes to mind for me. What like it's almost linked to in my mind is the Ernst Jung novel called On the Marble Cliffs, which is my favorite thing that Jung wrote. I've read a lot of his books, and this is the one I always recommend to people more so than, say, Storms of Steel or something, or other ones, Glass Bees and things like that. The one I always say is On the Marble Cliffs, and that is, I think, the best place to really, the best lens to view all of other Ernst Jung, his books, and just thematically, it reminded me a lot of, this movie reminds me a lot of that novel, where in the novel they're from enchanted place, and it details their lives and all the things that they do in their home, and how like the brothers are, they do this and that, and they have a kind of this enchanted Christian world, and this is the language Jung always uses just throughout in his diaries and things. It's always enchantment versus disenchantment, or unenchanted, or no enchantment. For like when he visits the Soviet Union, the occupied Soviet Union, he makes it as far as I forget, the Crimea, the Caucasus. He makes it pretty far, but it's in, say, 1942, and he visits with the Wehrmacht. They bring him aboard. He says because he wrote the Worker, so for whatever reason they wanted him to go, maybe to check out what shit show this place is, or to show them the communist utopia, or what it was, or what they found there. But he describes it as a world with no enchantment. This is what he says in his diary. There's no enchantment in this place. Whether it's always been like that, or the Soviets ruined it, or the German army ruined it. He doesn't necessarily go into, but it's a horrible place, a place with no enchantment, where you just look around and everything is just awful and horrible. And he's not necessarily like in the trenches or anything. He's kind of on tour of the occupied zone. Okay, but and he's referring to this novel too quite a bit, On the Marble Cliffs, and in this novel, They have this home as the enchanted home, the enchanted place where they live, and it's being encroached on by the chief ranger, or the head forester, or whatever you want to call him. And this is something of it could be interpreted in a lot of ways, and what this is, who he is, what he's about. But it's basically this is a violent and evil, and he's a figure that is secretly, killing all these people. And at the time this is written, it probably is most applicable to Joseph Stalin. And certainly in his, like, I would say this represents a Hitler of sorts and a Stalin, or it represents all these things to Jung. This kind of person, this kind of world, is encroaching on this other kind of world. The world, the bad is encroaching on the good. The enchanted place, the place he's interested in, that he would want to preserve and to, is being threatened by the chief ranger and his people, and these lemur people who are, they're violent minds. They're people, they're like what he would say, like, it would be like, because to him, you'd refer to like death head troops and like communist. Well, maybe at first he was taken by these views, but he would later really lump these people as the same. But this film goes over a lot of where you have the enchanted, their home, or initially the Actol's home. They have a theater, they're actors, and it's a joyful place. Their home is mostly, it's well decorated and ornate and all these things. And the people in it they're all very happy, even if they're somewhat degenerate in different ways. There's, the uncles are drunks and philanderers, and they're lecherous, so there are definitely problems and messy situations in their life, and the different women are carrying on affairs, and the men are doing whatever. But in the end, this is all a messy situation, and there's a certain kind of Christianity that they have. Like, they put on a big Christmas pageant play at their theater, and it's a more of a magical, imaginative, kind of a wonderful affair. They have a big party, and they're celebrating, and there's all kinds of things. They're drinking and they're running around and there's dancing, but everyone is really having a lot of fun. And this is the world that in this film they come from, and then the father dies. He's an actor. There's a lot of different layers in this film. There's a lot of different interpretations you could make of it, for sure. But this is kind of how I've always seen it. And there's a lot of the themes in it are very closely related. I wanted to watch this film again because of things that are going on now, and also so it ties into some of the other themes that we've been talking about, and like with the last episode, actors and people making an image of themselves and all that. And in this film, they're the actors, and they're being threatened by this force, the bishop, who in a sense represents, he's about truth against he's justice and truth against lies, but also against these kind of fibs and imagination, but just in the sense that it all ties in with actors lying. You're pretending to be something else. But in the film also, you see how what is imagined can kind of become reality, and things, even where Alexander is seeing these visions and things, and then also you don't necessarily know what is the truth or what is maybe imagination, or when imagination is becoming real. Okay, there's another film. I meant to kind of bring this up on the last episode, and we were talking about rap and rappers and things, but it's called, it's really good, and I wanted to recommend it, but it's maybe not a masterpiece, but it's called CB4, and it's with Chris Rock and Charlie Murphy, and it is so funny, and it is so true. It is exactly like, it's kind of presented like the premise is like this absurd premise, because it's like these rappers are like, in the movie, they're like from the suburbs, and they have nice families and all that, but they want to become like gangster rappers, but they have no gangster persona themselves at all. So, but in the film, they end up kind of stealing a real gangster's like identity, and then they become like gangster rappers, and they're obviously a total fraud, and the real gangster is like in prison, and he's just hating them and planning to kill them. And while they're just getting rich and famous by like pretending to be something that they're completely not. And the movie came out like before there was like the East Coast West Coast thing, and before a lot of this other stuff, like, and before some of the stuff we talked about last episode. But it was more parodying like NWA and things like that. But it is so funny because it's like it's almost like a Spinal Tap sort of thing or something. But it's actually like, this is like real life. It's actually like the truth of you know, it's supposed to be like a funny, absurd premise, but it's actually a lot like what these people are really like. And then, and like in the movie, there's like they're supposed to be like the NWA kind of thing. They're CB4, Cell Block 4, and then but what he doesn't like is like everyone else, like his family is all into like the MC Hammer parody named Wacky D. And so he's not even about, he just rolls his eyes at Wacky D because he wants to be like a gangster, you know, or whatever. But it's just funny. It's kind of like what we talked about with how MC Hammer actually did join Death Row Records. And this is after that film came out, but it's a really funny film. One of my favorite bands, the Butthole Surfers, makes a cameo in the film, so that's very much recommended. And it's just like real life. It's more true than, you know, but then even maybe what they intended it to be like. But there's a lot of the stuff that kind of touches on that. Anyhow, they're back to the Fanny and Alexander. So they are they're actors in the film. There's a lot of layers to this. Like the dad before he dies, he plays Hamlet's ghost. And then later in the film, I mean, he is a ghost. I mean, wow. Like, this is fantastic. But there's just so much stuff to, like, the mom, even before he, you know, this ghost is appearing, she's saying, you know, you're not Hamlet. Your father is not the king of Denmark. But they're living in this castle. Like she admits, it's a gloomy castle. Okay, so this is after he gets with the bishop. So the dad dies. He has some you know, he picks up a disease and he dies. You know, so they're thrust from the enchanted world. The mom is, you know, she's comforted by this churchman, you know, in the wake of her husband's death, and she falls for him, and he is a widower himself. His wife and children have died, and he lives in like this a very much a different place. It's another big, it's like this castle like big place. I mean, and it's just all white walls, and you compare it to the previous home where everything is decorated, and there's all these objects, you know, of curiosities and things, and everything is colorful, and red is like the most, you know, it's a place of there's all these people and friends, and they're, you know, they're kind of and they're just kind of kind and nice people, even though they're people with a lot of problems and, you know, weird stuff in their lives. But it's just a whole different world. And but the mom is also an actress herself, and she falls for this bishop who presents a different kind of world to her, and she seems to respond to him like with a convert's kind of zealousness, or she has a kind of fanaticism in her eyes, and she's falling for this guy very hard, and so she marries him, and it's going to be a totally different lifestyle. which she doesn't maybe necessarily know exactly what she's getting into. But there's things of what she says to, like, maybe she's never really been happy. Maybe she's just been living a lie because she's been an actress and she's been in this world of like the world of their theater and things, which is presented as like a kind of refuge from the real world, from the harsh world outside. The theater is present like they talk about the little world, and it's like the world of children, and it's a world of wonder and imagination and things versus the harsh realities outside the walls of the theater, outside the bigger world, you know. And she sees maybe, you know, she's been, whatever he's been talking to her about, she says she's been maybe living a lie. She doesn't know if she's been happy. She's been maybe living in illusion of sorts. And so now she can live a holy life where you live in the truth day by day, and your simple deeds are translated into, you know, this will be your happiness. And there is some apprehension to this too. Like, it turns out to be kind of a joyless life. And you think of like even, one of the, it's his sister or his mother, or she says, it's, you know, you'll think of just consciously doing your deeds will be, you know, will make you happy or something, you know, like you could think of it as a game. And like, it's like how people nowadays have to gamify everything to, you know, to make themselves happy, is that you have to think of it as like a game. And she says, me and my children were not interested in this kind of game. You know, so she is somewhat apprehensive about this world that they're entering into, but she thinks that she's ready for this, you know, but she maybe thinks that she's going to build a new world out of it, a reality out of it, where this is, you know, you show up to this place, it's very much unadorned. The walls are thick and they're just white. Like, it's just strikingly bare, and it's just stone, and it seems like it could be modular in some sense, or it seems like even at one point it was a more there was more to it. It maybe was a more enchanted place at one time, and now it's been whitewashed to a very rigid and harsh, just a hard kind of a place that they're in. There's just nothing to it, and there's just so much to, you know, because you think this is, it to me, it just strikes me how a lot of fundamentalism of all sorts and all kinds of, fundamentalist like stuff, or strict religious type stuff, or even like how, like Muslims and things will, especially like the Salafist kind of Muslim will present their stuff, their rules. You know, they have all these strict rules, but the way that they'll present the stuff is like, if you follow these rules, you know, these will help you. Like, these will cut the meaningless distractions from your life. You know, these things that never, you know, did they ever really make you happy? You know, this will cut this baloney out of your life, and then you will be free. Then you'll be living in the truth. Then you'll be walking a path that will lead to true, you know, maybe true joy and enlightenment thing. You know, maybe if you cut all these things that would distract you and lead you in one way or another and waste your life, maybe now you'll be free with these rules will free you, and then you can really create something meaningful. But I think so often, you find that that's not really the case, that it actually turns out to be, that's all there is. It is more about the rules and the strictness, and nothing is going to come out of it. And this is like the bishop's world, which is a world of zero enchantment and imagination. But he says, he has the truth on his side. He has the spirit. He has justice. He knows that man isn't just governed by his material needs. The spirit is stronger. He is stronger. He has the truth and justice, but his world is really just a world of rigid strictness and brutality and punishments. And, there's just no fun to it. There's no joy. There's no beauty. It's just a strict and harsh and ugly place. And this character, the bishop, is a lot like it's very much the same to me in my interpretation as Junger's chief ranger, the head forester thing. He represents the same kind of thing in a lot of ways, at least. And I think for Bergman, he also is he is like a Hitler-like figure. The churchman, this pietist bishop, is kind of like a fascist or something, and he's also very much modeled more than anything on his own father, who is like a clergyman himself, who would preach and teach and do all this stuff. And so this, you could see where, if you're familiar with his other films and just his struggles with faith and Christianity and all these, which is he goes into very deeply in quite a few films, very, very deep and dark stuff. And this is, you could see with this film, kind of where this came from. Because the stepfather in the film is modeled on his real dad, and Alexander in the film is modeled after him. Alexander is imaginative, and he resents the new world. He never accepts it. He never is about what his mother's ideas for the place and for the move and for any of that. And he is still, he's fibbing, and he's getting in trouble for his imagination and things. And he detests the churchman and his kind of regime. And I think for Bergman, I think he also represents kind of like a Hitler-like figure. Because Bergman, when he was a child, was into, he'd been to Nazi Germany, and he'd seen Hitler speak, and he thought it was all great. And he, throughout his youth and he's in Sweden then after, but he is rooting for Hitler personally. Like, he's into, up until later, he realizes what his regime, what all they were doing in Nazi Germany. And so he becomes disenchanted with that regime when he finds out more about, a lot of what they were doing. But this is kind of a similar kind of figure. I think that, you could interpret it in different ways. You could just assume this could be like a rigid communistic type figure or something like that. like it's the same place as like they said, the chief ranger, where this could be, this probably initially most resembled like a Stalin or something, or a Stalin's regime. But even at the time, people were thinking that this could be very much. Jung was writing this in Nazi Germany, and people were thinking this could apply to Hitler. It certainly could, and but I think with this film, it's his dad, and it's like a kind of a fascism, and this kind of religious, and this kind of a strict religious fundamentalism is in the figure of this pietist kind of churchman, the bishop. And so, and this man is punishing them. He's coming up with he's getting in trouble for these kind of lies and things. Like he's telling fibs of he's seeing the ghost of his father and things. Again, like it's there's so much to it. I mean that you see the dad is putting on the play. He's Hamlet's ghost. They're staging this. He's an actor, and then later he is a ghost. But he's also he's seeing ghosts, and then he's fibbing about ghosts because he's telling this. He gets in trouble for making up the story about how the bishop's wife and children died, and how it's because of his brutal regime. They try to escape him, and they fall into the ice, and they all are carried away, and they drown in the ice while they're trying to escape from the bishop's castle. And so this enraged when the bishop he finds out about this, he's enraged. And it's going to be punishments and this brutal kind of regime of punishments, and you can see why Alexander is hating this man and like praying for his death. And him and his sister is very much is kind of like she's in the title, but she's somewhat of a minor character, but she also very much resists the bishop, but they're praying for him to die. They're hoping for, they need some kind of deliverance from this place. And the mom, real quickly, she's had it as well. And she needs an escape, and it doesn't seem like there's much of a way for her to escape. But she seems like, as it goes on, like there's definitely abuse there, and this is just a harsh person, and I think, and later, I think it's revealed kind of that just as she'd seen how she was living a lie, that he kind of reveals that his faith is also a mask in itself. So whether or not, and it's said by, it's later this kind of mystical androgynous character sees visions of him and says that this man is saying, he's waking up from his sleep. He's saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? And things like that. Like, so he seems to have some kind of, even despite his brutality and his existence, who knows if this is even someone who believes in God at all. He is very much similar to an actor in itself, even though he is the character who brings this world under attack. He's presenting himself as the real world of truth, and he's attacking this world of imagination and thing. He's like the Gusto from CB4 who's attacking MC Gusto and CB4. But he is he also kind of represents. He's a lie in itself, is what I think this is saying. So even whatever his faith is, it's a mask in itself. He himself is also an actor. It's a lot of these themes that I think Shakespeare asks a lot, like who isn't acting, or who, how evil it is to be an actor. They're liars, but who isn't acting? But his world is, his lies shape, are limiting, they only create, they limit your existence. They just are a brutal, just a brutal kind of, whereas the other view, the lies of it are more open and honest, and are producing something. They're making people happy, and they're full of life. And this is almost limiting you even to like your death, or you're it's like just a punishment on your life. And it's a joylessness that it's being produced out of this, and there's nothing really to it. And I mean, one would have to ask, why would God back this and this kind of regime? Why would this be better? Why would this be a more holy life or so? Okay, and in the movie, they are delivered by, there's a Jewish character, and this is like a very and even maybe more. He also represents kind of this enchanted world. He's a friend of the Actal family, and certainly of the mother-in-law, Emily, the mother-in-law, or her former mother-in-law, after her late husband's mother. So he's a friend of them. He's at their Christmas party. He's with the Actals. So it shows they're a talented, not talent. They're a tolerant kind of a people. They're hanging out with this guy. He's Jewish. He's from the fringes of society. He's not really. Him and his whole crew, with Isaac Jacoby is the Jew, and then his the others, Ishmael and Aaron. They're very much. They seem like exiles of sort from. They're friends of the Actal family, and they have a world that is maybe more mystical and seems like to hearken like the world of like the Maccabees or something, or like this, like more of a medieval kind of existence. They also have all these puppets and things, and they can put on shows, and they have a more mystical and more dark and maybe even more enchanted kind of existence. And they are outcasts, and this is kind of who saves them, and kind of a magical deliverance. He gets them out of there with this chest. He brings them to this place, to their place, and then Alexander seems to be able to bring about the death of the bishop through his imagination, through this kind of androgynous Jewish, very strange character. Okay. He's picturing him dying, and he really dies. Like, they kill him with their imagination. They magically bring these ideas to life, and they hate this guy enough, and it seems like the wrath of God is falling on this guy in the way he dies, where he has this aunt, and she is just horrid looking, and she lives with him, and she doesn't say a word, but just has a terrible kind of condition or whatever, is just bedridden and just monstrous looking and disabled completely, but he takes care of her. And this is the character who basically like knocks a lamp over, sets herself on fire, and just runs onto him, and it just sets his clothes on fire. And it's just like this really bizarre kind of comic death, where it just torches him and he can't get the flames out, and he just dies in horrible pain with his body all burnt. And it's like this terrible, the way he goes out is horrifying. It shows you this, he can't get her off him, and he just goes up in flames. And this is how they are delivered from this man, from this brutal, brutish bishop, churchman, who is punishing them and who they hate and all this stuff. And so in the end they go, it's like a happy ending. They go back to their old home, and everything is joyous and wonderful. It's a real Christmas movie, and it shows. There's so many contrasts with the one home and the other, and there's different kind of Christianities at play here. There's two different kind of the way they live, and there's a lot how you can interpret this. You could definitely there's definitely some there's religious themes through this, there's libtard themes through this, there's definitely some, but it's something that I think should, I don't know, you watch it, and if you're an imaginative kind of person, because Alexander is kind of a different, it's like there's it's all kind of a Lutheran, and then, like I said, there's the bishop kind of represents a Hitler figure, but Alexander, he kind of does too, in a way, because the way his sensitivities and his own hatreds for things, and the way how blasphemous and how troublesome he is, like a young Hitler, in his, like, and then the bishop is like a Hitler. These, like, that there's multiple Christianities and there's multiple Hitlers in this film. Okay, and he even there's just so much to it, and if you have a religious background, I think you can just pull so much out of it. And especially if you struggle with these things, or if you've ever been kind of taken away by some of the stuff, this even the way towards the end, the bishop's ghost appeared just as his father's ghost would appear, and in the longer cut, the daughters of the bishop haunt him after he makes up the stories about him. Their ghosts actually show up and are accusing him of being a liar, that he was lying. And but towards the end, though, the bishop shows up and like trips him and says, you cannot escape me, or he says, like, you could never escape me, or something like that. And this is so, I mean, it's not in the context of the movie just in itself. I don't know what you take of that, but I just think of how this is, like, how that represents Bergman's father, his real dad, that this is this isn't something that you can just escape, his whole, I mean, this is one of his later films, and he'd already made like all these other, like The Silence and Winter, The Virgin Spring, and Winter Light, and things, even The Seventh Seal, and all his films. I mean, how meditative they are, and how much there is about faith, and there's a lot to, and you could see how this is something that has cut him very deep his entire life, and So he says, you can never escape me. And I think that's just so much how your religion, it's in your blood. Like what you were born with, what you were raised as, you can maybe convert to this or that. But in the film, I think he could have maybe answered that maybe he could escape him, because he'd only lived with the bishop for so long. His real world was a more enchanted kind of Christianity. It's all kind of a Lutheranism, but this could be, every kind of religion has these kind of extremes to it, every kind of faith and different ideologies as well, where from the life affirming to the more brutal and rigid, and where it's more of a brittle, and even I would say but he could maybe say he could escape it because he wasn't from that. But for Bergman himself, it's almost like that was the ghost of his real father, that he can't escape it, and he would know he can't escape whatever he represents. He can never escape it from the time he's a child and through whatever else he might go through and desire or what as an individual. This is part of who he is. And so, I myself kind of, I feel that, I have with my own religion, I've been a Baptist and evangelical Christian. All like my whole life, and there are times where I almost want to escape it, but you just can't. Whether you're hot or cold with it. Even if you could, whatever, you convert religion, you become a disbeliever or something, it wouldn't matter. But I definitely feel that no matter what, it's something. If it once it's with you on like a very deep level, you're not going to really get away from it. But this is it's just something that comes to mind now with the state of Christianity in general, where I don't know, there isn't really one or the other. I see a lot of like the bishop character and the different brands of people's Christianity now, and certainly with the stuff with the new IFB, the new Independent Fundamental Baptist movement, which is at a complete end. And to a lot of it is because it's come down to a lot. I see a lot of the themes that are in the movie have come to life, where this kind of strictness and this kind of rigidness, and that it doesn't come to anything. It doesn't flourish into something. It doesn't become something lively and wonderful. It could have never converted a whole nation or something like Christianity has in the past, or it could never become something more than a brutal existent, like for a certain kind, like a movement that it's same as elsewhere. This is maybe something that seemed like attractive, I think, and it seemed like it could have been if it could open up, like the promises of God and the things that are in the Bible, and this kind of, because you could see in the Bible there is a kind of enchantedness to it, and there you want to unlock this kind of existence, but then the people who claim that they can do it, or seem like they would be in a position to do it. These clergy type people turn out to be the biggest hypocrites, and you wonder if they can even. I wonder, a lot of times if people even believe in God, and it's a lot like the stuff in the film, where because you see how people carry on, and it's totally different. And this is what has been the death knell, especially with Steven Anderson, where people see all his children are coming out against him, where he has 4 adult children, and they're all coming out against him. And it's even beyond just say that it's not entirely because this is abuse, because people could have figured out that this could be probably kind of an abusive person in some level. The level of it is still shocking for anybody when you preach a certain way that you're preaching that that you should that God invented an area called your butt, and that it's a perfect area to land a little spanking, not too painful. It just sends the message that you did something, and then it turns out he's actually like whipping his wife with a electrical cord, like a Gestapo agent with like a rubber truncheon or something. And so people are horrified, and not just by the level of abuse, but by all the lying and the gaslighting. And when you find out that when the mask is revealed, when you see that this is more like a Lemurian kind of violence to it, and that there is not going to open up into something else. It's not going to make a better world. It's going to make a world of brutality. It's going to limit things. And now everyone is leaving this, and no one is coming. No one's coming back on this. So the few that are still sticking around to it, like the Bible chatters and the Jonathan Shelley's kind of people, these people just represent the kind of lemur like violence, the brutality and limited brain power. You could see it in a lot of these people's faces. And some of these people are just foolish or are willingly ignorant, but some of them are just subscribed to this kind of brutal existence. And you see most of the people who still have joy in their eyes, and who are more interested in a positive kind of Christianity, in a more joyful kind of life. They're gone. They're all leaving. They're out. And this is very bad for Baptists and Protestants. And so, because however many trads or whatnot, this would be a good alternative to the trad kind of thing. When the trad kind of thing, these people might kind of try to claim the more enchanted, but they represent more of the bishop, the churchman. They represent more the brutal, limiting, life-denying version of this religion. They're not people with real traditions who are all joyful and all that. They're people who have a myopic view of things, who are small-minded and hateful for just life in general. They're just resentful and bitter and all this stuff. They might say that they're being accused out of bitterness, but they're going to be the most bitter kind of people. Because they just ultimately don't care for life and they don't really have a lot of love. They're more like in the film, the bishop, he says, my love is not, he says, it's a lot like this kind of people say, where there's a love that's like the sloppy agape kind of thing, but they represent more of a love of discipline. They represent a love of a rebuke. They're the love that shows you that you're doing something wrong. And this kind of person loses sight of actually like loving people, of actually like they have none of the sloppy kind of love for the, you know, that no, like in the film, the bishop, he says, my love is harsh and it's strong, you know. It's not like, you know, it's not like the sloppy love, you know, what they say, the sloppy agape, you know. And I've seen this in other churches, you know, throughout my life. Where this has to be addressed, that you can't, you know, because people will tend to, they'll go for this tendency. It's a tendency where they'll go for this love. You know, this is love. As I beat you and punish you, this is a real love. This is the love of truth. You know, this is a real kind of love. It's only going to do you good. It's for your own good. It's for your betterment. But of course, it isn't really out of any kind of a loving place. You know, these people will tend to not really have any kind of love for their own children at all. And that's what you're seeing, where you see these people, you know, if you have 4 children, say, adult, that they don't see how their parents love them at all. They don't even get why they had them. It's already a problem, even beyond the abuse or whatever. It's you messed up raising these people. And it used to be said in this movement, it was more stressed, you know, if you train up a child in the way he should go, when he's old, he will not depart from it. You know, that's what used to be said. And that was like attractive to people, because people don't want to raise up their children to hate them or something, you know. And now this is more the line, that your children are just going to be rebellious, or you know, you're just going to have to beat down generations of rebellious children. If you have the truth on your side, your children are going to be rebelling against. This is very discouraging for people now, because what they wanted was teachings on how to raise a family so their children won't turn out to be like degenerate wastrels, and just won't live their lives for, you know, to conform to a world that they see serious problems with. But they would like their children to have a strong, you know, they don't want their children. Most people don't, you know, you see in these real extreme groups how they don't care if all their children go away and depart because they are on the trip, you know. It's very discouraging for most normal people. And this is why that movement is completely at an end, because that is a 0% success rate. If you have 4 adult children and they all come out against you and they want nothing to do with you and they're mocking you and they don't take you seriously and they only, you know, and they just wanted to see you go down. So without going into the details of all that, this is what we're dealing with. This is why these movements will, you know, there isn't really any kind of alternative. It is discouraging for people, where you see how, because what is there? The kind of weirdo Christian nationalism, any kind of Christian associated with that, you pretty much know is full of beans completely. And the trads are maybe the bigger sensation, you know, because it seems like there is kind of a Christian revival, but it's all complete shit. Like, it's all garbage. I don't really see any good coming out of any of this stuff. What is being popular, but more and more people are sick of atheism, and maybe they're also sick of the Christianity that they grew up with, or the Christian, or maybe the kind of, whether it's the kind of evangelical Christian Zionism type stuff that just seems corny and laughable, and the kind of Kirk Cameron kind of separate society, the Christian bookstore kind of Christianity is thought of as a joke. And so they maybe want something more hardcore. And so they may go to something like the trad thing, which is definitely blowing up more than anything else, where it's very surprising to see how many people are doing, like, getting into like Eastern Orthodoxy or something. But that's its own thing, but that is also a sub branch of this kind of brutal and phony and limiting Christianity. And also, I think it's clear at this point that the new IFB is not any kind of alternative to it, because this is even and good on all the churches that have departed from it, and that's the only way they can even save themselves, because at this point, Stephen Anderson and Faithful Word Baptist Church is like, and I have nothing against him personally. I've always liked talking to him, and I always thought he was really funny and really impressive in different ways. But it's just completely over, and I think that he could have. He could have maybe addressed everything and fixed everything at some point, but it's just totally over now. He didn't, and it's just done. And now he is like I don't know. He's like Jonathan Shelley is like the flaming disabled ant on fire who's just like gripping him and setting his clothes on fire as well, and he's struggling to get free, and he's just going up in flames himself, and there's just no saving it. But the only there are people who maybe can save themselves, the Berzins and the Pozarnskis and the Alvarezes and these. If you have probably most of the viewers on this channel have no idea what I'm talking about with any of this stuff, so. But just in general, like, because I don't really go into this stuff usually, and this is kind of an arcane topic. But just in general, I think it is something that we explore, and if there could be an alternative, an ideology that could be good and healthy for our people, a religion that can save it. At this point, I think only. You need to figure it out for yourself. You need a personal spirituality that, because the churches are bringing nothing, and they're not gonna. I can't recommend a thing. I mean, do you it just seems like the Pharisees, one Pharisees after another, where these are people who will put harsh rules on you, and they don't even really follow them themselves, or this whole thing, their faith is a mask in itself, and it's not much different than any kind of Hollywood special effects illusion. It's just that they are using the Bible to put a strict kind of life on you that they say will produce results, will mean something, when the actual results is quite clearly that your children will grow up to hate you if you follow this stuff. So that's why no one is interested in that sort of thing. No one is interested in a religion where if you follow it and you follow these teachings, your children are almost certain to grow up to hate you. Where people have a horrible life and a horrible marriage where they're beating their wife with the rubber truncheon, and she's beating the children, and they're doing all these other weird punishments and tortures, and their home life turns out to be a series of horrors, but they're running blogs and stuff like that about like their perfect life and how things are going well, and there's all these women are just feeling betrayed now that they had this presented themselves, this Christian lifestyle and this way of parenting, a way of governing your home. And this is supposed to produce results in itself, but there's missing elements here with like where you're like using weapons to beat them and feeding them like gruel to make them puke and make, or whatever. And like putting them in cold showers and things, like all these horrible things. Isn't, people are being mocked for criticizing this by this bishop, this churchman who says, like everyone's a bunch of pansies who just can't stomach that he's like beating the piss out of his kids. But it's also that, for one, people don't want to do this stuff to their own kids because other people love their children, like actually, and their home life is like the central to them, and they're not themselves into, they're not pastoring and like leading they don't have a mask of a clergyman or something. That's not their perspective. Their focus is their family. So they're feeling lied to about these teachings that are a lie. This is hypocrisy. When you put these rules on other people and you don't follow themselves, which is the case in so many different ways. You preach one thing and then do another, and then you don't correct the record on it, and then you just let these people go because your followers because you disdain your own followers or whatever. Yeah, after a while, when people figure it out, when they get a glimpse of it, when they see, like Ezekiel, when he sees he's given this vision, you see the horrors of the stuff. You see how pharisaical all these people are. I mean, and it just seems discouraging. Like all these people are like this. It just seems like this isn't the answer. It seems like we're not getting the clergy, the churches, the religion isn't giving us the right answers, and so people are tricked. You put these blogs out and these videos and stuff and show, you could live a perfect life. Right? This is how but you leave out these elements, these horrible punishments and all this stuff that's really going on because you have to meet certain qualifications and you're forcing the square peg into the round hole with brutality and all, This is not okay, but there's a lot of weird stuff to it, but it is strange, but yeah, it's like this is like the very much the limiting kind of fundamentalism. I personally do see myself as a fundamentalist, but more so because my religion is more about just reading the King James Bible for myself, because fundamentalism is not necessarily about being strict. I'm not strict at all. Like I've always let my kids watch rated R movies. I'm not like permissive, but I don't have like a strict, like I'm very much active with my kids, but I'm not strict at all. Like we don't have any kind of weird punishment regime or something. We're not really into that. How other people do raise their own kids is whatever, but that's not what we're about. But my fundamentalism is just about returning to the fundamental text myself, and in the end, I have a more open mind. I like it because I can keep more of an open mind from it. Like I could read this text and I could decide for myself and figure, and it's a lens I could see the world through and interpret things through, and it helps me, and it's not limiting for me. I like it in that it opens things up, but I don't really I've never come across a church that really, because I am kind of a joiner. I don't really like to just be on my own program. If there was a church, You know, I try to join churches and stuff. I try to be a part of stuff, and it just never goes right. And it's not because I'm, you know, I typically don't get in trouble or run afoul of things, but it's just after a while, I get discouraged and disappointed, and you know, and I don't even think I have like really hard standards. I see, you know, I'm a human just like anyone else. I see human failings. You know, I see, you know, I'm not particularly angry even at the people who I'm talking about, or I see them as just humans who really seriously screwed up. But there are tendencies here, like I say, that I think are expressed in the movie and have been kind of, we're seeing in real life. And there are things that you just want no part of, and to just get serious about. We need to just put these things in the bin and just move on. This is the only way we can really open things up and make a really happier, healthier life for ourselves, for our people, for our country, for, you know, everything. We need to kind of, I don't know, get away from all the liars, swindlers, hypocrites. Get real, and maybe we can make something more lively, enchanted, and wonderful and happy. You know, but right now it is a lot of the awful kind of stuff. So, but you know, what the film presents is kind of a world of art and imagination. I think is the real. These are the escapes. This is what you combat with, and I can totally subscribe to that. In a lot of ways. So, but yeah, it's definitely over for that. I don't see anything else really on the horizon. You know, people are going to depart from this, and they'll maybe just join whatever, you know, they're just going to have to humble themselves and join a lame church or just move on with their lives or whatever. But the more exciting, fanatical, fundamentalist movement that we've seen kind of emerge through the Baptist, it has turned out to be, you know, I'm just saying people should acknowledge, if you're a part of this, you know, most people probably are probably like, why did I, you know, you're probably not familiar. Most of my audience isn't that familiar. I don't mean to waste your time. There are things that you could still get from this, right? I mean, because we can observe this stuff and figure something else out for ourselves, which is one way or another. That's what we're going to have to do, or just depart and create a separate world. But that's something. Anyhow, it's a great film. It was great to watch, just in light of some of the stuff. And I mean, there's so much to a film like that where you could definitely approach it and with something else going on in your life, and I think you'll still get a lot of meaning from it. I mean, it's one of the, it's not like it's a favorite of mine, but it's a universally acclaimed like I think pretty much everybody who watches it would be like, you know, this is one of the greatest movies ever made. You know, it's really a wonderful film. So yeah, I definitely recommend it, and also CB4 is very funny. But yeah, that might do it. But yeah, anyhow, but yeah, I love you, and thank you for listening, and until next time.